cleared up, then Kevin Whalen is going to have Jeff on the Whale Certified podcast to talk about everything we're doing together, which is super cool. Is Nelson in the meeting? I don't know if he's here.
I don't think so.
From Uganda. It's 2 a.m. at his time, so I didn't 100% expect him. Is David Rika in the meeting?
Yes, I'm here.
Yep, David's here.
Yep.
David, good to have you here. David.
Yes. Hey, Tom. Hi, everybody. Yes.
Hi, David.
Tom, do you know David?
We sure do. Well, yeah, he's my boy. He's great. Yeah. I look up to Tom. He's my man. He's the one that gave me the influence to do what I'm doing. So, hi, Tom. Good to see you again.
You too, my friend.
We had a great meeting with David. He's excited about the High School Champions League. He's going to help us, and we're going to have another meeting with him with the leadership team to get that part going. Siggy Nagel's here with Nagel College Planning. We've been approached by two other college planning places that see what we're doing. And Ziggy, just so you know, and everyone knows, very politely, we said, listen, we've already got that part covered. We got Ziggy Nagel College Planning, takes care of all that for us. So thank you for what you're doing, Ziggy, and thank you for being in this meeting. Ziggy offers to mentor free of charge 3 to 5 kids per Champions League market per year, which is fantastic. Thousands of dollars worth of value there. So thank you for that. I will share with you, Select Sport America has continued. Terry may say something about that. Continued to do a fantastic job for us and with us, especially with the Virtuoso Award that was created by Tim McAvoy and Select. Tim said he didn't have anything new to add to this meeting, so I'm just mentioning them and mentioning our appreciation of them. Chris Croshaw from Polk County cannot be at the meeting, but the Polk County Champions League, they're just adjacent to Hillsborough County here in Florida, and they're the ones that have the unique setup where they have promotion and relegation within their high schools. First, second, and third division. All the high school coaches in the county are bought in, 24 of them. It's fantastic. And they're getting a logo. They're very excited about the fact that Chris is now in our leadership team and working with us. So there's a lot of good things happening there. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. You'll all meet Chris soon. Eddie O and Gory have started on the website. They've got a framework created for a national website. If you, the structure of it is going to be a lot like the Barclays Premier League website. He's taken that as sort of a model, and the way it's like that is that there's a set sort of template for how the website is, and then there are links, and every new link that comes up is embedded within that template, but has room for each individual area to sort of spill out their story in their own unique way. It's very exciting, and we've sent Eddie and Gory a bunch of information. They're populating the website. It's a process. Probably by the next time we meet, you will already have seen it. I'm guessing that that's where that's at. Eddie wanted to be here tonight, but he's on a cruise with his wife, so we'll see him next time. Thank you, Tom Byer, for introducing us to Drew Broughton. Drew is known as the fear coach. Tom called one day and said, hey, I talked to this guy, Drew. I told him about the High School Champions League. You should connect with him. You should meet him. Tom, we had a fantastic meeting. We met for about an hour. And the first thing I said to Drew was, Drew, we are not a client. We don't have any money. He said, it doesn't matter. If Tom Byer's sending you to us, I want to talk to you. Well, after we finished talking for an hour, about 2 days later, he wrote and he said, listen, I can't stop thinking about the things we're talking about. Can you meet again? So we're going to meet up with Drew again at his request Tuesday morning next week. He said, I've been thinking about what you're doing. I have some ideas for you. That's super cool. I got something from Scott James in Columbus, Ohio. Scott, I'm going to read what he said. They're in the middle of gathering opinions of Columbus, Ohio coaches. They've sent out a Google form. They're getting the opinions sent back. They're in that process we've all been in, that startup at Champions League. It's a patient process. It takes time, letting everybody, make sure everybody understands what's going on, but they are well into the process. Very exciting to have Central Ohio joining us. Is Keith Harris from Memphis in this meeting?
I don't think so.
Okay, Keith and I, we talked yesterday. Keith is in the exact same place that Scott James is in Columbus. Keith and his friend Jay Fauzi, another high school coach in Memphis, they're in that process of getting them up and running. I would say these guys are looking at maybe 2026-27 season, both of them, for coming on board. Is John Krasinski from Pittsburgh here?
No.
Okay, John, we had several meetings with John. Terry met with all of their coaches, the Pittsburgh coaches, and we had a podcast episode with John. So Pittsburgh is well on the way. Perfect metro area to be involved in. Very high school oriented, sports town. Just a great place for us to be associated with. So those are the pieces of information that I wanted to share. I think this is a good time, Perry, to throw it back to you so we can get to St. Louis.
Yeah, real quick in regards to someone that also spoke out, Jim Boker from St. Louis, who now we see is in Denver now with the high schools. And Jim and I have both been in touch with him through emails. We're just trying to put a Zoom call together and to obviously move that along. Having said that, next on the list we've got Greg Keller. And Greg, obviously you got some great news with the women just finishing with their competition. So looking forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, hi everybody. Yes, so in St. Louis we just finished up the girls high school Champions League, and Corey Azu, who featured a U.S. Youth National Team player, Maddie DiMaria, who was voted with a hat trick in the finals, the Virtuoso Award. They won 4-2 over Liberty, and it was a great turnout. We had a change venue because of a storm that hit our venue that we used in the fall. And so we moved to Maryville University with the help of Eric Delabar, who did a fantastic job helping us get that arranged. And that has led to Maryville hosting next year and probably years beyond that for the girls in the spring. It's a great venue. We packed the stands, as Terry can attest. It was a great turnout, beautiful evening, and we were very pleased with the overall, quality of play. The game was a great game, and it was just an overall great atmosphere to have the final at Maryville. And so we're going to move forward with them. We're waiting to hear back for scheduling for next year. We have some ADs, especially on the girls' side, who want to make the first 3 games in the first week of the season out of pool play, and we're trying to resist that a little bit. So we'll see how that turns out. We're still waiting to hear back from the boys to the final venue to see if Creve Coeur will be ready to go. It seems like they will be up and functioning in June or July. And so we're hoping that we hear back with some dates in hand so that we can move forward. Maryville's working with us, and Terry can obviously add on. We got another sponsor who is giving half zips to the champions, boys and girls. The Hair Saloon Scholarship was awarded to a girl from a local high school, Fort Zumwalt West, who's going to attend Mizzou and study business, and so she was awarded $2,500. We'd like to thank Ruth Arker, Vince Drake, and Al Trost, who are on the committee, for choosing that. They do a great job. And Terry, you have anything you want to add to that?
I would also mention that the sponsor, you have Servco, provided really classy scarves for the Final Four teams. That was really an extra touch that added a whole lot to it. It's something the kids are really proud of and will like to show off, and you have it forever. So it was a great touch.
I've talked to Tim, and we had a little joke going with the yellow balls that were part of the package. The yellow balls were being used too many times in the St. Louis games, and I asked Tim at the game. Terry was there too, and I asked him. I said, after the game was about 4-2 with a few minutes left, I said, "Oh, it's time to break out the yellow ball." And Tim kind of laughed about it, but he said he probably isn't going to include that anymore in the giveaway, because
Wow.
the coaches have a hard time distinguishing what ball is a good one and what's a for memorabilia. So I don't know. You have to talk to Tim to see what the future holds with that one. But
Kind of learned the hard way. Yeah.
yeah, we have to learn the very hard way. Yes.
No, that's great. That's fantastic. And again, congrats on the success. For the first season for the girls, and the fact that like you said, Eric stepped in to help out. It's fantastic. You know what, Jim? I'm not seeing David Wilson on the call.
Okay.
Did you want to take the Tampa Bay?
Sure. Tampa Bay report is
Yes.
everything's going great. We're in the off season right now. The girls are setting out on their own. The girls' coaches now are taking the girls' Champions League. David and I sort of shepherded that girls' Champions League to life, and it was like, okay, we're going to take the life support off, and either the patient's going to live or die. And the girls' coaches have stepped up big time. So that's very exciting. We're getting ready to enter our 8th year next year on the boys' side. We're going to have our final at Al Lang Stadium, hosted by the Rowdies, December 13th, 2025. The Rowdies have invited some St. Louis podcasters, Kevin Whalen being one, to come down and cover that, which I think some of them are. I know Kevin is. So we're just in a really good place in Tampa Bay. Is John Walsh here, Perry?
Yes, he is.
All right, and let's throw it to John then.
You know what? I'm sorry. John Mayer's here.
Okay.
John Mayer. I apologize.
South Florida is going good. The big news from South Florida is they've extended to include Monroe County, which includes Key West, and actually Key West High School was a Champions League or was a district champion. So they're going to have to negotiate Key West High School playing games against all these other places. That's the big thing that we're waiting to hear how that's going to work out. But South Florida's on track, going good. Is it back to me, Perry?
Yeah, back to you, and you can introduce Nelson and Jeff.
Okay, Nelson I don't think is going to be here, and that's fine. But Jeff Wong reached out and offered to, and got excited about the High School Champions League and offered to look for ways to work together. So I invited Jeff to this meeting to give just a few minutes so that he can introduce himself, tell a little bit about what his project is, and then maybe in a subsequent meeting we can give Jeff a longer period of time like what Tom's going to have tonight. But guys, welcome Jeff. Wanted you guys to meet Jeff Wong. Jeff, you're up.
All right. Hello, everyone, and thanks, Jim. I had a couple of meetings with Jim, Terry, and one or two other guys, and we had some great meetings. I think I reached out to Jim over LinkedIn, and we kind of hit it off. And I must say, I love what you guys are doing with the High School Champions League. It resonates with me. I played a different sport in high school, but as our team got good, then just the whole thing about competing and having the rest of the school come out and support it, and how that builds excitement and confidence and things like that. It was just, I love what you guys are doing. And I've always, at least through most of my life, been somewhat of a rebel and an underdog. And so I love how the whole high school Champions League movement is kind of, in a way, competing, wants to work with like the academy system. I'm really into that. And in regards to Footballer Plus, my son and I, we're based in Vancouver, Canada, and just in Vancouver, just like a lot of places in the United States, we don't have the same level of coaching and infrastructure, etc., that some of the top European countries have. And so, for his own development, to supplement what he was receiving at his local academy, we searched online for resources, and we got him a speed coach from Sweden. We've got him a game film analysis coach from Germany, a mental performance coach, etc. And that really helped him. And then towards the end of high school, he started to get an interest in business. And so I had said, hey, Lucas, what's something in your life that you could potentially monetize to bring in an income? And he brought a few different ideas, and football or soccer was one of them. And so we embarked on a father-son project, a journey to create a platform that was kind of based on his life and his development. And so we asked some of the coaches that were involved in his development to come on the platform, and then after that I like to say we shook the tree to see what kind of fruit would fall off the tree, and so we sent a message to the performance nutritionist of Manchester City's academy, and cast the vision, and he loved it, and he got involved, and then we started to ask others, and slowly others started to get involved from Chelsea and Bayern Munich and different clubs like that, and also a cheer. Should I share my screen, Jim, and just kind of show it a little bit?
Sure.
Okay, let me. Okay,
Do I have to help you there, Jeff?
I think I can just do it.
You know what, Jeff? Let's do this. Let's set up a time when you can come and have a bunch of time at our meeting to talk and go into the depth of everything.
Yeah.
And I just wanted people to see you, to hear you speak, and to know who you were. And if I could say something, what Jeff is offering, a lot of our players are not going to be interested in, but some are. And there's these extra resources. Some of the kids play high school soccer just to play with their friends and to support their school, and that's it. They don't need European speed coaches and stuff like that. Most of them don't. But there are going to be a few that will find this as an interesting option, as something to pursue. And what Jeff has offered to do with us is to allow our kids from the High School Champions League to get in on these different things at a steep discount if they are interested. There's no need to do anything for anybody, but for those that are interested to follow the path that his son followed, we're going to see what's there, and we're going to see what possibilities exist. But the way we look at it, Terry, I'm going to be throwing it back to you in a minute before Tom comes in. Terry, we've had a lot of discussions about exactly what is the purpose of high school soccer. Who are we serving? We're serving a lot of people for a lot of reasons. But one of those small groups of people are that kid that needs resources because maybe they can't afford to access the pay-to-play environment for themselves. But, if there's a place where they can get because they have a dream and they want to push themselves. And this fills a place in our platform, Jeff, what you're offering does. And that's why we're excited to make it available to the kids that we serve. Because what we're about is not letting kids fall through the cracks, especially kids that might want to make something of themselves in the game. And I think there might be a good fit there. So, Jeff, if I could leave it there, did you want to say anything before we move on to Terry and to Tom?
No, just excited to partner with what you guys are doing. Love what you guys are doing. And then also, hi, Tom. Tom and I talked a couple times. Love what Tom is doing as well. So this is where all the action's happening. So we got to be here.
That is fantastic. Thank you, Jeff, and thanks for reaching out to us. It's really great. We're really grateful. I wanted to bring Terry back because Terry has spent a lot of time now thinking about high school and its place and what are we here for. The big question Terry is on to is why. Why are we doing what we're doing? And Terry has come up with a little bit of a framework that I find very interesting. And nowhere in the framework is club soccer. Now, we know club soccer is going to be a part of everything that happens in the U.S., and we want it to be, and we want to be friends with them. But Terry, I don't know if you wanted to say that little framework first, and then we'll give a proper introduction to Tom and let him go. But Terry, did you want to take it for a minute or two?
Yeah, just for a minute, real briefly and real quickly. But first, I want to get back to Jeff for just a second, because I'm finding that there are more and more kids that are reaching out to get extra help in soccer from local people, thinking that might really enhance their game a little bit. But what Jeff is offering is the same kind of help in the same areas, but from a professional point of view. So I think there's a definite avenue there for the kids that are wanting extra help, that are already asking for it, but they can get it at a higher level. So I appreciate what Jeff's offering and making available for that on that reason.
Thank you.
Real quick, what I would consider my ideal pathway. This is just my ideal pathway, but I've been fortunate enough to be around enough quality people to know what's going on. And for me, the starting point is Tom Byer soccer starts at home. And, we all know that in the game of soccer, the essence of soccer is to solve problems, and the way you do it is through ball skills, through skills. It's not the mental game that makes a big difference. It's can you execute when you need to, what you need to do, and how you need to do it best. And that's all about confidence and repetition over and over and over, and being able to spot what's going on and then make a decision and do it correctly. So soccer starts at home is the answer for that. My second step up is futsal. And, anybody that knows enough about the game in Brazil knows that futsal is the leading sport in Brazil over soccer. More futsal played and more benefit from futsal in that country than any other things going on. So futsal is fantastic, and it's an outgrowth of it's an expression of what soccer starts at home. Teaches the kids with ball skills and confidence. Now they get to play and execute it in the game of futsal. The third level then is Togo. And Togo is a total soccer concept from Todd Bean. Todd's in Barcelona, and he's the son-in-law of Johan Cruyff. And the big concept behind the Togo movement comes down to three C words. First one is cognition. Cognition is all about the intelligence involved in the game for seeing what's going on, coming up with solutions, executing, and moving on from there. The second C then is competence. That's being able to do what you do and do it right, properly. And then the third C is character, and that's the behavior, everything about it. So cognition, competence, and character. 3 C's. Huge. And I could go on and on talking about it, but that's the essence of it right there. The next level is the high school play. And high school play for me is really important because there's very few kids that actually go through the ranks and end up being a professional soccer player, even though a lot may have aspirations of doing that. The reality is very few do. But everybody can play high school. And we all know the values of high school sports and high school soccer in particular. Now with our Champions League, we're trying to enhance that. In an ideal world, I would even put club in there because high school seasons are short. They're over with before you almost get started. And we don't have the luxury that Japan does where they can play all year long and play a championship game in front of 50,000 people. We don't have that luxury. So, we got to have something to supplement after that so we could marry the two, high school and club. I think that would be the ideal. So for me, it's soccer starts at home. It's futsal, it's Togo, it's high school, and high school club. That for me sounds like a pretty good pathway. And I don't want to take up any more time, so I'll turn it back to you, Jim.
Without any further ado, we're really lucky to have Tom Byer joining us. So to give Tom a proper introduction would take up the rest of the meeting. Just understand that Tom is, I just listened to a podcast with you, Tom, with the guy from India, today. So Tom is working in India, the Philippines, China, Japan, literally billion or more people that he's been able to influence over a period of time since playing professionally in Japan in the 80s, and has developed this soccer starts at home. But the real connection point I think, Tom, between what you're doing and what we're trying to do with the Champions League is soccer starts at home is about supporting the individual in their pursuit to be a soccer player, but beyond that, supporting the individual in their personal growth, their academic growth, the growth of their brain, the relationship between their parents and the kid. And high school soccer is the exact same thing, just much farther down the line. We're about the individual. We're really teachers with a whistle around our neck, or we're teachers. We're about individuals. We're about using this game to get to things to make them better at the game, but to also get to things that are bigger than the game. And I think there's a lot of synergy between what you're doing and what we're doing. It might not appear to be so at the front end, but I'm so grateful that you see it the same way, and so grateful that you've taken on to our movement. So please look up Tom Byer online if you don't know his bio. But without any further ado, I want to throw it to you, Tom, and thank you for being with us.
It's great to see so many familiar faces here too. At least I just counted up at least 7 or 8 people that I know here. So I'll try not to put anybody to sleep. It's 7:30 in the morning over here in Tokyo. I'm coming to you from my living room. And so let's jump right into it. I'm going to share my screen real quick here. Let's see if it comes through. I think it does, right? You've got the 4 pictures.
Yeah, well done, Tom. Love it.
So basically, I'm originally from New York, born in New York City in the Bronx. My dad was in law enforcement, and he got sent upstate New York. And so I was in the Bronx, and then I moved to Ulster County Community College, which I want to give some bragging rights to. We're back-to-back national champions in the late 1970s. That's where I was talking to Terry. Terry played with a bunch of the guys that I grew up playing with as well. And then I made my way to the University of South Florida. That's a little hidden gem. A lot of people don't realize that, but I actually played at the University of South Florida in the early 1980s. And I'd like to say I was their most famous alumni, but we'd have to give that to Roy Wegerle, who was my teammate. So I played with Roy. And then I made my way over to Japan in the mid-1980s. This is a beautiful picture of our Mount Fuji during our cherry blossom season. And I played for Hitachi, which is in our J League as well. We have a very, very healthy professional league here, 3 tiers, J1, J2, J3, promotion relegation, 62 teams. But I've seen this journey, having arrived here in the 1980s. Japan is a very, very interesting kind of study to really think about, because they went from nowhere, and to the women, we won the World Cup. We won, in fact, on the women's side, we're outliers, because up until only recently, Spain, the second country, Japan is the only country that's won all 3 FIFA women's competitions. And why that's remarkable is because we did that in the space of 7 years, and we only have 30,000 registered girls that play here. But I'll get into a little bit more of that after. After I got out of playing, I wanted to stay in Japan, and I pitched this concept to Nestle Japan to sponsor me and a bunch of former professional Japanese players and national team players to go around the country and just kind of soccer clinic. It wasn't really, there was no real philosophy or methodology at the time. It was just a bunch of former professionals going around. But this lasted 10 years. So it got me actually experienced into how do you put kind of sponsorships together. Everything I've ever done in my career, I've negotiated myself. And as you'll see, I've worked with the biggest brands in the world as well, but it gave me a lot of insight. But in the 1990s early, I'm a disciple of what we call the Will Curver methodology, Curver coaching, which is a technical skills development program. We have it in America, but there's nothing like it is here in Japan. In Japan here, we basically kind of changed the entire country with this concept of focusing on individual technical skill development. And this slide you're looking at right here was the way that we delivered it. We had a message, and that message was, if you want to be a good football player, it started with the technical component. So we delivered this content through many different ways: animation, schools and camps, online content, events, which I call building advocacy, television, newspapers, football magazines, comic books, and then creating products. So we delivered that. And now fast forward, where we started with just one technical school back in the 1990s, and everybody kind of thought I was crazy. They thought in Japan, nobody's going to come to these schools. You've got to create a club kind of atmosphere, a pay-to-play type of club atmosphere. And I said, no, we went the other direction. All we wanted to do was provide a solution to a problem, and that is that most players are technically poor. And football or soccer is a hit or a miss. Depending upon where you live will depend upon the quality of the coaching that you have. So we focused on these schools, and now fast forward, and we have over 150 of these schools over the entire country. And to show you the journey from grassroots to national teams, this last FIFA window here in Japan, when we played Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, and beat them both and qualified the first country in the World Cup to qualify. 5 of the starting 11 come from our schools, including the captain. So we can see that journey and the impact that it's had. And these are the schools I'm not here to promote Kerber coaching. I left it 15 years ago, but I started it and I ran it for 16 years, and it plays a pivotal role in what's happening here in Japan. And really, what happens is that when you can close the gap between the very best developed players and the least developed players, that's when your elite player pool explodes. And we're seeing that now here in Japan because our players are the most sought after players in the world right now in all of the top European leagues. So going around the country, building this advocacy, I've done over 2,000 events for 500,000 kids, coaches, and parents. These kind of, I call them mega events, basically taking our message into the communities. Japan has 47 states. I've been to all of them multiple times conducting these events, but also doing some mentorship as well. This woman here in the yellow was my assistant for 3 years, Asako Takakura, and then she went on to become the women's national team head coach, and she actually won the World Cup, the Under-17 World Cup, and then she was bumped up to the senior national team as well. So again, seeing that journey, and what does that look like? What does that look like from development, where she was working with me in these grassroots events, and she goes on to win a World Cup tournament, the Under-17s, and also the Olympics as well. So again, traveling around the country, working at training centers, very fortunate having worked with Adidas for more than 2 decades as their football ambassador here in Japan. Anytime any big players or stars came to Japan, they'd usually come through my events, and the reason why is because I had a television corner. So every weekday morning, Monday to Friday, I would show up on the #1 television show for children in Japan. This was not born out of a football craze, it was born out of a Pokemon craze, which is pop culture. So this animated figure was created in Japan. So I'd come on weekday mornings, I'd have an audience of 5 million households per day, hence kind of the football starts at home, although we didn't call it that at the time. It was actually named after me, Tomson Soccer Techniques. And I would basically present a 1-point lesson. It was just a very short 1 to 2 minute spot, but it lasted 14 years, and that's a long time. And then after our women won the World Cup in 2011, I was a bit worried because we only had 30,000 players, girls that were playing. So I put the captain of the national team on my show. I stepped aside, and I let her come on the show, and for 1 full year, we just focused on ball mastery for young girls. So again, using the power of media to present your movement, so to speak. So again, in Japan here, we have over 30 football or soccer magazines. Every single magazine in Japan carries a technical skills development corner. And we were the first movers starting that in the early 1990s. So everywhere you look, you're just seeing technique. These are all best-selling DVDs. To be a good football player, it starts with the technical component. And this is really kind of what I was just saying, when you can close the gap between the best and the worst kids, that's when the magic happens. So these are kids from just one of our schools. They're not elite players. These are just average, everyday players. But most kids here in Japan are at least skilled at ball mastery. And trust me, these kids can all play very well. So this is really what the magic is of where you want to get to. If I were to kind of compare the U.S. to Japan, I would do it this way. All of our Japan national team players all play in Europe, and I would say that a majority of all of the U.S. national team players play in Europe as well, but this is where I think it's different. When you look at the gap between our boys from Japan that play in the top European leagues, the gap between those players and the players that play in our J League, the gap is very tiny. When you measure up the American boys who play in Europe in the big leagues and the typical American boys who play in the MLS, that gap to me is like the Pacific Ocean. It's too big. And until we close that gap, and the only way, for me, the best way that you close that gap, the best way that you make the best players better, is by making your worst players better. They're the ones that are going to push those better players to become better. So this first part is just a quick who's Tom Byer, what did I do, and this is really why we're here. It's the football starts at home. So real quickly, the genesis of this is that I was doing one of these huge events for Adidas, and they were giving me these tiny little balls that you're looking at right here to sign and give to kids, and the light bulb went off in my head because my first son had just started walking. So I thought, wow, small ball, small foot. So I asked Adidas to send me a few of these balls, and they sent me a huge case of 20 balls. And because I'm a technical coach, I knew the importance of ball mastery. So I put 2 or 3 of these balls in every room of my house, and I discouraged kicking. And I encourage more of this ball manipulation, ball mastery, ball keeping, call what you want. But I became obsessed with development. And I wanted to figure out this answer to this big question, and that is that there's 211 countries that make up FIFA, but only 8 on the men's side have ever won a World Cup tournament. Uruguay, Brazil, Argentina, Germany, Spain, France, Italy, and England. So I started studying those countries because I wanted to find out why only 8 countries out of 211, and there's 3 or 4 serial repeat winners. So I wanted to figure out, do they have better coaches education, better elite player pathways, better facilities? I found no, D, none of the above. What they have is cultures of development that start way earlier than the rest. And here's the difference, A and B. We've got football cultures, for example, in particular Latin countries, where fathers and also mothers as well, but they'll use football as a tool to bond with their kids. So it's very simple for me. I can see that in those football cultures, kids, when they cross over the line into organized play, they've already mastered the basic building blocks, so they can benefit from the coaching. The rest of the world, they're showing up, and these kids are going to their first practice ever, believing they're going to start to learn the basic building blocks from a coach or perhaps an inexperienced volunteer mother and father. And that head start is the most misunderstood part of the entire game. That head start of being familiar and comfortable with the ball at your feet at the ages of 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 is massive. And never say never, but rarely the other kids will catch these kids that get the head start. So if you accept this and you buy into this philosophy or belief, then you have to agree that parents are at the forefront of football development, way more than even coaches are, because that's what sets the trajectory for a child wanting to fall. When I started studying the great players around the world for many generations, I realized that they didn't fall in love with playing football or soccer necessarily. They fell in love with the ball first. And that leads to a lifetime of wanting to play and watch and just the whole thing. So these are my 2 boys right here. They're older now. One's 19 and one's 16, and you'll see how their development has taken place. But this is what I do. I'm blessed, and I'm invited around the world by the biggest confederations, FIFA, UEFA, all of them, to actually do this same presentation. In fact, FIFA has invited me twice now on their diploma for club management, made up of mostly CEOs and professional presidents, as well as the biggest clubs in the world. I've done it actually twice. I've given these lectures. But most recently, I was invited by our confederation, which we have 47 countries that play in the Asian Football Confederation. And I was invited to Korea, and I presented to all 47 presidents and general secretaries. So slowly but surely, the word is kind of getting out. And what I also found out, which is really key too, is that most administrators that are in charge of finances, in charge of hires, of who they bring in, they know little to nothing about development. And so what most countries do is they will kind of import their football experts, so to speak. These are usually Europeans that'll come to the various countries. They come with their briefcase of philosophies and methodologies that they believe they're going to import this culture into different countries, which rarely ever happens. I've never seen it even happen even once. But this was an opportunity to actually present to leadership, which I think is very, very important. When you look at this slide right here, this is a developmental pathway. This is how most of countries around the world see football development, except this blue dot on the bottom that says football starts at home. The Philippine Football Federation is the only country in the world that has actually adopted football starts at home as an official developmental pathway at the beginning. I believe that it's going to change, and we're going to actually, eventually, this will become self-evident, where people realize that there was a blind spot in development that was very misunderstood, where football literally has not caught up to what science already knows, and that is that skill acquisition and the learning of technical skills happens at a much earlier age than the football world actually believed or suspected. So I've had lots of different groups come to Japan. These are all the technical directors and academy directors from Ajax, from Feyenoord, from PSV Eindhoven, from AZ Alkmaar, from Holland. And what I really was surprised at is that the countries that I thought would benefit the most from this kind of new information, the football minnows I call them, have been the last ones to really kind of be interested. It's the big countries in the world. The Germans, the DFB, La Liga, France, all of the big countries, Holland, all of them are much more interested, and it makes sense because they're so good, they're innovators, and they're always looking for the next best thing. So what is football starts at home? Well, it challenges this common belief that in order to develop top players, then a majority of the hard work happens at the elite side, and it flips it upside down. And instead, we argue and challenge that no, it happens at the entry level of the game, where parents are key. So what I'm trying to do is change this image. Usually, this kind of picture you'll see when organizations are trying to promote the sport. I'm trying to kind of replace that with a more of a picture like this. This is my son at the age of 5, and he doesn't belong on a team yet, but if you look at him, you can tell he can play. I mean, it's pretty obvious, right? His posture, his eyes are up, his body balance, just everything is there. And really, so this program is really focused on kids. The elevator pitch is this. I talk to all these countries that spend hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars on creating these kind of national curriculums, as they call them, the DNA of how we're going to play. And I tell them, well, here's your national curriculum that'll fit on a cocktail napkin. Develop a little army of little boys and girls by the age of 5 or 6 that have mastered the ball, and then just get out of the way and let them play. And it's very simplistic, but really, it's really at the heart of what we're talking about. These are the young ages where football becomes a lifestyle. This is where it embeds into the community in a very authentic way. This is where a child builds that love for the game. There's nothing more impactful than a parent and a child sharing experience together. So that's at the core of it. So when you look at what happens at the entry level, more often than not, it's viewed as the kicking game. So parents will go out, they'll buy a big ball, they'll go outside, and basically they're kicking the ball back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. What I'm trying to do is change that culture. Create a culture of development where parents understand the importance of ball mastery by showing them and trying to inspire them and show them, okay, well, what does a 2-year-old look like with a ball at their feet? Well, this is one of my boys at 2. But what you're looking at is far greater than a football program. What you're looking at is a little child trying to master an object, the ball, with his feet. But what you're really looking at is a child developing the ability to pay attention, to focus, okay? And when you can do that, and a child develops the ability to pay attention or focus, that's where the magic happens. So here's a little bit of neuroscience involved. What's happening is you've got the mind and the body, thinking and feeling, working as one, and that allows the brain to create what we call a chemical signature of the experience, which is emotion. This is an emotionally charged environment. This is where deep learning and long-term memory takes place. This is being stored in what we call the non-declared memory, which makes this an unconscious automated movement. Now, basically this is being embedded, almost think of it installing like the software into the hard drive. And done enough times, this strengthens the neural pathways. So what we do is we show parents, okay, how do you use a ball to develop the ability of focus, attention. This has everything that you can imagine in it, controlling the emotions. But what brings this to life is a parent being present. A little child doesn't go waltzing around, dancing around in an empty room. So teaching parents the child's constant need for your attention, your approval, and your praise, which again creates that emotionally charged environment, shared experience between child and parent that you're not going to get out on a field with a coach with 20 or 30 other little tiny children. So it's really kind of isolating it, right? So here, I'm showing this is my son at the age of 3, when the football world is telling us that kids can't develop these skills at this age, and I'm showing what a 2 or 3 or 4-year-old can do. And what you're looking at here is he's mastered the basic building blocks, so now he is experimenting with the more complex, difficult movements, which creates an implicit learning environment. And implicit learning is, and really is when you've done something so many times, you can't explain why you can do it. That's riding a bicycle, that's driving a car, because it's really operating on a subconscious program where you don't have to bring it into your conscious awareness. And that brings me to a real quick, I believe, kind of, there's a question in football worldwide about the importance or the non-importance of what we call isolated, unopposed practice. There's a school of thought by coaches that believe that isolated practice and unopposed practice is useless. They're kind of both right and wrong, but for the wrong reasons. They don't understand it. What's happening is that a lot of coaches are working with older children. They'll come across, let's say, for example, the Curver content, which is all technical skill development. They'll try to implement that isolated training with their 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old kids, and it looks really good in practice. So traditionally, they'll set up a training or an exercise with 4 cones. They'll put 6 kids on each cone. They'll all dribble in. They'll do a scissors move, and it looks fantastic. But they don't see it playing out in a game. And the reason why is because they're operating from their conscious awareness. When a child is standing there and they know what they're going to do and they're watching the child and the player in front of them do that, it's very easy to do that. Step right and go left. But they're not seeing the game. And the reason why is because it's not hardwired. It's not hardwired into the cerebellum, which is the seat of the unconscious, subconscious mind. So regardless whether it's a mental task or a physical task, it's all stored in the cerebellum. Now the younger ages, at 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, it's being stored in their subconscious mind. 95% of a child's brain is developed by the age of 5 or 6 years of age. So there's a gate that closes. Not to say that other kids or most kids won't improve, because they will, but you're not going to see that giant leap forward that you're expecting to see. So this is what it looks like with a little 3-year-old just starting out. You can see day 1, he's just barely making contact with the ball. He doesn't even have good body balance or agility. Almost falls over there. And then look at him 6 days later. So enter in Dr. John Rady, who's the foremost neuropsychiatrist in the world from Harvard Medical School. I was just blessed. When I wrote the book, Football Starts at Home, in 2015, Dr. Rady had heard about some work I was doing in China, and he contacted me, and again, long story short, he offered to read the manuscript of my book. We hadn't published it yet, and he liked it so much he wrote the forward and the afterward. So he wrote 14 pages from my book that brings together this cutting-edge neuroscience. And the reason that he was interested, well, wasn't for the football component. He was interested because of the child-parent kind of attachment, and also the cognitive, emotional, social, and physical skills being developed through this program. So now we've got this kind of cutting-edge neuroscience. For everybody that's on here, if you don't have it, I will send you the PDF to our book, and you can read it instead of me wasting time kind of explaining it all. But here, this is what it looks like with a child right before they cross over the line into organized play. So this is my oldest boy, who is just getting ready to go to his first team. He just graduated kindergarten, and you can see his level or his kind of trajectory of what's going to look like. Now imagine you're a volunteer, inexperienced father, coach, or mother, and you inherit 20 little 6-year-olds like this on day 1. All you got to do is set up the pitch, little mini fields, and just let the kids play. Versus inheriting 20 little kids that have never touched the ball ever, and they're going to expect to learn these basic moves. So what happens, guys, is two major biases manifest. These kids become the most popular kids on their team because, of course, when the coach says 3 or 4 to a ball, they all gravitate to where the good kid is. Number two, they become the leaders because when the coach wants someone to demonstrate, who do they ask? They ask the good kid. So now a little 6-year-old's getting the opportunity of leadership of leading 20 other little 6-year-olds. And I don't think it was a coincidence that I've got 2 boys, 4 years apart, and they both turn out to be their number 10s on their teams, and they both become the captains. And that's not because of any great DNA that I wish they were born with. It's just that they had a father who knew the importance of getting them off to, as my good friend Todd Bean says, that someone mentioned Tovo. This guy's a brilliant guy, Johan Cruyff's son-in-law. And Todd really kind of coined this phrase that football starts at home, gets kids off to a flying head start. That's really basically a good way to explain it. So what we do is we focus on parents and we show them, okay, what does it look like? What's the beginning look like at 2, 3, 4, 5? This is at 7. And then also, okay, how do these kids play? How does that transfer from the living room or the backyard into a full pressure game? And here you can see how my son transfers the ball from the right foot to the left seamlessly right here. 1, 2. And then boom. It just looks so effortless, okay? Or here, this is a mathematical equation of such complexity done in a millisecond because he's looking over his shoulder and he's measuring the distance, the speed, and the trajectory of the ball to do this. Or when he gets a little bit older, what does it look like when he gets caught in this little dead space? And I remember when I showed this, I was invited to Ajax in Amsterdam, and the chief scout said, this is the ability to outsmart your opponents and your own teammates because you think he's stuck here, but he's able to get frontwards and get around, at least get in the box and create a moment or danger. Or developing players who don't always play sideways or backwards. They're 1 versus 2, but they know and they have the confidence that they can fit that ball right between both players, transferring the right foot and the left foot, and off you go. Here's what a neural pathway looks like, guys. Look at that on the left-hand side. It looks kind of like a hand or a lead. Think of that as the feet. The feet are the furthest distance from the brain, so we rarely have any opportunities to build those neural pathways. But this is what builds it. That white, those beads, think of that as your cell phone charging cord, the white plastic that protects the copper wire that the signal travels against. This is what a neural pathway looks like. Why this is important is because of that word myelin. Those rings, the thicker the rings are, okay, like this, the faster the message travels along the neural pathway. Why is that important? Because the way that you build those, thicken that myelin is through repetition. There's what's called Hebb's law in neuroscience that says that nerve cells that fire together, they wire together to make a neural network. And the stronger the network is, the faster the thing. Now, here's a little kid at the age of 3. And I couldn't figure out for several years, to be honest, I'll admit it, why the father was making this kind of weird, annoying little humming noise until recently. I figured out he must be doing that because he figured out that he needed to let his son know that he was paying attention, he was watching. Because if he didn't, he would stop and he would break that repetition. So actually I call this guy a master coach now. He figured something out that even I didn't know. Because the kid's head's turned and he doesn't see what if the father's there, he'll stop and he'll look up. So now 2 years later, this is what it looks like at 5. But again, falling in love with the ball. This little guy has no context of playing on a team, teammates, opponents, coaches, systems, positions. It's just him and his ball. This is the same kid, man. This is the kid at 9 now. Now you can see how he transfers this to full pressure on the right. And this is such an amazing clip because the space that he does this movement is just off the charts. How he keeps his ball in bounds and touches the ball several times before the defender can put his feet down. So again, just for time constraint, I could sit here, as some of the guys know, and do this all day long, but I'll show you a little girl too, Jocelyn, whose family came to me when she was 5 years old or 4 years old, and they put a little plan in place here. And as you all know, this is a very difficult movement to master, transferring the ball from the right foot to the left at speed like this. And then you can see on the right-hand side how she uses this playing football. She transfers right to the left. And then I'll just show one more, I promise, and then we'll move on here. But it's just I love to show these. This is a little girl at the age of 5. And the transformation between this frame and the next frame is mind-boggling. So again, this will be my last video, at least for this frame. So this is really, it epitomizes everything in football starts at home. This is a child and a parent. The father's down in the left-hand corner. This is from our research project when I worked with the Houston Dynamo for 4 years in the University of Houston. This is the boy and his father, just starting out. This incorporates everything: agility, balance, bonding between a parent, using a ball to bond with his son. This is literacy. The father's giving him commands and understanding is taking place. This is numeracy. He's counting as well. It's got everything you can. But more importantly, this is golden time that a parent can never get back. But using football as a tool to bond with their children, and this is what I maintain is happening in a lot of Latin countries. Their coaching is no better than any other coaching in the world. It's just that their start line is moved way forward compared to the rest. So it really comes down to these folks right here, parents. So my work now is really literally going around the world, filling up a little ballroom like this is a room in China, in Shanghai, pre-pandemic, of going around and educating parents about the importance of ball mastery. But what we have now is cutting edge research, because we caught the attention of Harvard. I did research with Stanford University in China, studying 80 little 5-year-olds in 2 remote villages, and also the University of Houston, who basically we started a research project with several hundred children, and we actually improved their test scores in mathematics and in reading. And that might boggle your mind, thinking, well, how the heck can that happen? Well, because the part of the brain that's responsible for ball mastery, the cerebellum, is also responsible for thinking, remembering, which is memory, controlling emotions, decision-making, and I say drum roll, literacy and numeracy. So professors at the University of Houston, we studied several hundred children, and half of them got ball mastery at home and a physical education class that's focused only on ball mastery. The other kids got nothing at home and a regular physical education class, and we literally increased their test scores in math and in reading. So now we've got some empirical data to show that not only we're making your kids' football skills better, we're actually making your children smarter, okay? And what parent would not be for that? So that gives us a whole new tool in our toolbox to go around, work with professional clubs, work with ministries of education. This is basically my work, what I do here out in Japan and throughout Asia. Work with brands. Brands love our program. This is basically the CEO of Volkswagen Group in their biggest market in the world, which is China, appointing an American as their football ambassador right after the Germans had won a World Cup. I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back. I'm saying that because they value the program. along with cognitive, emotional, social, and physical skills as well. So it's got a very strong academia component to it, and that's the reason why schools love our program. So we build a whole ecosystem around it. I filmed a TV corner in China together with David Beckham, where we provided this 1-point lesson, a 3-minute corner that went 365 days during golden time in the evening time at 6 o'clock in the evening. So now we're presenting and we're delivering to over 100 million households per day. And then just a little bit about our research. When we did our research, we basically found children who'd never played football before. They didn't even own a ball. And again, very simple program. 4-ball mastery exercises at home. We showed the moms and dads. But we also gave them an orientation to inspire them, to show them, okay, well, why is this important? What are the benefits? Showed them what does it look like along the journey. And then these were some of the outcomes. After we finished the project, we asked, did you find your children becoming more confident over time? 87% of the parents said yes. Below that, we asked, do the kids like playing with the balls at home? Over 93% yes. We asked, do you want the kindergarten to continue the program? 81% yes, 18% if they want to, but the best for last. Would you be now willing to go out and buy a football? 98.77% say yes. So what does that tell us? You want to build the game or grow the game in your community or your neighborhood or wherever? Engage with parents. Give them a program. Give them a philosophy. Give them a belief with an intended outcome of what it looks like, and parents will actually react. I was invited to India, and everybody was worried because cricket and other sports are popular, football's not. They were afraid that nobody was going to show up to my presentation. I said, well, don't present it as a football program. Present it as an early child development. And this is what the ballroom looked like in my hotel. It was standing room only, so we know the parents. We also filmed stories around it as well. I had the host broadcaster in Australia come to me for the World Cup of 2018. They said, can you marry together? Football starts at home with the players. I said, I sure can, because I've already done it. Messi, Ronaldo, Suarez, Iniesta, Neymar, Lewandowski, Cruz, Modric, Pogba. The common thread, they all started between the ages of 2 and 5, in around the home, and the roles that the parents play. So then we built out content. So I could go on and on. The last part, the Houston Dynamo study that we did when I took on the project, I told the president, John Walker, that I would only do this project if he gave me unfettered access to every employee in the club, including the first team coaches, the players, the people who clean the locker room or cut the grass, because we needed to create a culture of development that was understood, and we couldn't possibly export this in the community if the club wasn't walking the walk, walking the talk. So we did that, and then we promoted it. It was the online content, #1 most popular content on the entire website. And then we basically built it out, and this is what it looked like. And basically just trying to communicate with as many as possible. We do the same thing with organizations that we work with. This is content that we created for the Philippine Football Federation. As you notice here, it doesn't say play like a World Cup star, it just says teach your child to fall in love with the ball. That's the premise. And that's a very simple, easily achievable task for kids when it comes to ball mastery. But what ball mastery really does, it just teaches a child how to focus and how to pay attention. And for anybody on here who has kids, a child who has the ability to pay attention, I call it almost a superpower. Because they can take that into the classroom, they can take that attention span anywhere. So what I did was, last year was my biggest project. I did a project in the Philippines where I went around the country and visited all 33 football federations with the president of the federation in his private helicopter, basically building the advocacy, taking it to the people, and then creating content around it. So this is kind of it, guys. This is a couple of last images here. For me, culture, that's the football starts at home piece. And the problem is that a majority of countries, they focus on these big ball holders. We need more money. We need more coaches. There's this obsession with coaches' education. I'm not saying that coaches aren't important. They are, because I am one. But when it comes to skill acquisition, okay, skill is rarely the result of coaching. It's this love affair between the child and the ball. And then I'll leave you with this short little kind of 15-second, for some of you that know Rene Mullenstein, he's perhaps one of the top technical coaches in the world. when Rene saw my presentation, and then he knew I was going to present to the 47 presidents in the AFC, he gave me this little gem.
Hi, I'm Ronnie Bookenstein, former skills development coach and first team coach at Manchester United. And I'm here to support Tom Byer with his program, Football Starts at Home. I honestly believe that this is the missing piece of the puzzle. As a matter of fact, without this piece, there is no puzzle.
So that's it, gentlemen. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And the reason, that Jim and I connected, and some of the other guys too, is just think about this. This is a program that costs zero. It's culture, it's tradition. And I guess the reason why sometimes it doesn't catch on, like you would almost think this is idiot-proof, is because you can't touch culture, you can't feel it, you can't smell it. It just happens. And what is culture? It's when an organization, a family, a community share the same beliefs, the same values, and that's very sometimes hard to change. I tell people that it's easier for me to operate in a country with no football culture than it is to operate in a country with the wrong football culture because of the beliefs that are just ingrained to think about. Jim and I hooked up because I think it might have been some comments I made. Here in Japan is the epitome of high school soccer. There's no country in the world like Japan. We have the biggest, most unbelievable tournament for high school players on the planet. Our final sells out the national stadium, 60,000 spectators. There's a TV show that's dedicated to the high school tournament that goes 14 days straight, every single day, Golden Time. And this is such a valuable resource. Here in Japan, schools, the pathway of either high schools, colleges, of course our J-League clubs have academies as well, but the people in charge of football here were smart enough and clever enough to utilize this unbelievable valuable resource that we have, which is high school soccer. I'm also a high school product, having grown up playing. Probably my biggest, best memories of me playing were probably in high school or in college as well. But so it resonates with me, and in the United States, where we've got this ridiculous pay-to-play model, I understand there's a lot of reasons of why we have it, but the reality is that high school soccer should not be pushed away. It should be embraced. I'll tell you something interesting that happened in Japan, and then I'll come up for air here. The Japanese, the federation, understood and realized that both high school and colleges are an official pathway for developing players, so they abolished anything at the professional level after the age of 18. We used to have an under 20 and an under 23 team. Every J-League team, basically we don't have that anymore because they saw that the colleges were doing such a good job of developing that they basically abolished anything after the age of 18. So that's something that I think is quite remarkable and significant. But anyway, I could go on and on and on and keep talking about this, but this is, I hope you have a little bit of understanding of what this concept is and trying to really just spread the word. I'm busy enough here. It pains me to say I have worked a bit with U.S. Soccer and MLS, but man, that's a whole nother conversation. I'm not quite sure what's happening. I kind of do, but the politics are exhausting when it comes to, one last thing maybe, I'll show you, and this is Anson. Anson Dorrance is probably my biggest supporter in the United States, and Anson had been lobbying me literally for a decade to do something in North Carolina, and he graciously made this video too, which really kind of encapsulates exactly what's happening in the U.S.
My name is Anson Dorrance. I'm the women's soccer coach here at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and I'm proud to sit here and talk about Tom Byer, my good friend. I'll tell you one thing, when I was in the international arena coaching for the United States, obviously the challenge for us is this was the world game. And so in 1991, when the United States won their first star and the world championship, that was an incredible achievement. I was so proud. In fact, I was just thrilled that we could compete with the rest of the world. Back in those days, Japan was a non-factor. And all of a sudden, Japan is embracing Tom Byer and his wonderful methodology, and they went from nowhere in the world right to the top. They won a world championship under his guidance, and a lot of his methodology is what I would love to bring to the state of North Carolina. Right now, for me to compete nationally, I've got to recruit Southern California, I've got to recruit Dallas, Texas. I've got to recruit Atlanta, New York, Chicago. I can't recruit locally and compete nationally. One thing I love about Tom, if he comes into our culture, he's going to completely transform it. Right now, the United States is living off its 4th World Cup star. They won the World Championship this past summer, and we are incredibly proud. We want to continue to stay on top of it and develop players that can basically dominate the world arena. Tom Byer's methodology is so unique and so simple. I want to bring him to North Carolina.
So that's it, gentlemen. I'm going to stop my comments.
Tommy, very, very impressive.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you.
It's one of our best meetings. Okay. I mean, I'm caught up in your presentation. Very, very good, Tommy. Thank you for everything that you're doing.
Yes.
Excellent.
And luckily you guys got the short version of the presentation.
You talk about the culture. That's the culture I grew up in St. Louis. Guys, I don't want to cut anybody short. I mean, I just did this for an hour and 15 minutes. So, we can continue to go until we get cut off. But again, I want to thank everyone for jumping on this call. All right, very, very meaningful, great presentations and good feedback and updates from Florida, from St. Louis, and obviously, continue to grow this. Jim, I'm going to throw it to you.
No, that's it, Tom. Thanks so much. And I think you talked about that emotional connection between kids and parents. When the kids get to a certain point, that emotion transfers over to their friends and their school, and that same emotional connection is there. That's what we are talking about. They make fun of us because, the coaches are saying, "Oh, they're just playing with their friends," but they don't understand. That's the point. That's where that emotional connection is. The other thing is you talked about culture being imported. The thing about culture in the U.S. is sports culture revolves around schools. You can't import it. This is our culture, and we have to be a part of it. That's it. Tom, why do you care? When you get in the U.S., we want to be with you. Why do you care to take your time to talk to us high school coaches here?
Well, I mean, they go hand in hand. I mean, you can't have one without the other. It's the bottom end, it's the top end.
Yep.
And again, this is such a no-brainer. I mean, even think about it, even with high schools, just schools in general. We probably have the most futsal courts on planet Earth because every school has a gymnasium. I mean, it's just such an underutilized resource.
Yes.
Real quickly, can you imagine? We have a program that is shown to improve children's math skills and reading skills. The two biggest problems in education is most kids in the inner cities, they can't pass a standardized reading or math test. But we've got a problem. So it's just being clever enough. But I love the whole Champions League movement because this is all volunteer. This is the American way. This is the way that we basically do things in America. We've got the best resources on the planet that we don't use. So it just really kind of kills me that, every time I look, there's a new alphabet soup kind of organization that's popping up that's asking for money. When we've got high schools and junior high schools, and we've got this ticks off every box that you can imagine. Every kid is physically active. But yeah, I mean, if I was in a position of influence at U.S. Soccer, high school would be one of the biggest. I'd be utilizing that resource as much as possible. I believe
we're here. We're not going anywhere, and we just want to thank you for being a part of our group. Tom and Perry, I have to jump out myself. So Tom, I'll be in touch with you. But Perry, I'm going to throw it back to you, and I'm going to personally be signing out right now.
Okay, Jim. Thanks. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
you know what? Jim and I'll be keeping you abreast on things that are coming up. But again, appreciate the support and the push. And let me see. We'll be communicating with everybody before the next meeting. All right. So again, hope you have a nice weekend. Enjoy it, Tommy. Great to see you. And again, we'll obviously continue this conversation next time. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Have a good day.